With Dune 2 coming out in the very near future, I think everybody's kind of in the mindset of wondering what is the best high sci-fi series. I think a lot of people are going to be leaning towards Dune for now over Star Wars.
There's a couple things we have to consider here is we have to almost remove, because if you're asking what's better, Dune or Star Wars, and we're putting there for now anyway, we have to remove cultural phenomenon, because
Yes.
Star Wars was unmatched for cinematic storytelling.
Wait,
that
why do we gotta
Dune
remove
cannot we have to remove that because Dune cannot duplicate that.
You already have to give Star Wars a disadvantage to make it fair for Dune.
Let's really narrow this down. Remove, I want to say everything, even the prequels. Look at the original series. Look at Dune, what Dune is doing right now, what Star Wars did. If Star Wars came out now with the exact same story, with the exact same everything, but maybe with better graphics, more modern graphics, right? But you're telling the exact same story.
Right.
With a few tweaks. Which one do you think people are going to gravitate to in our current movie-going climate?
Again, it kind of creates a debate, but I think it just depends on if you're going complexity, where there's a lot of substance there's a lot of lore there, or if you don't, because especially when the original trilogy was out, there wasn't a lot of lore there. It's taken years and years and years to craft the lore of the Jedi, to craft the lore of the galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, I would say that's why I think for now, for the time we're living in, I think people are more invested in Dune because it is based on a book. There is lore, there is history that you can go and you can look into.
Well, the starting place of the writer cared about explaining all the details of the political intrigue, the science of how Arrakis becomes what it is. Whereas with Star Wars, you don't have that. You just have, we have people who are force sensitive, and there's an emperor with a sidekick who's evil and he wears a suit. You know what I mean?
I'm not saying that anybody's going to, that if it were to come out today, that anybody would be like, this is a terrible series, or this is worse than Dune. It would be different. I think people would still enjoy it, and I think it would actually probably still start to garner the same kind of following that it did back in the day. But I think the pre-established lore that Dune has gives it a little bit of a leg up. And then if we re-add everything that's going on right now with Disney, Star Wars, and everything, I think Dune is better than Star Wars right now.
100 times
it's
better
much
than
better
Star
than
Wars.
Current Star Wars right now.
Dune is far beyond anything Disney's done with Star Wars.
But that's not fair to say. When we are looking at 2 movies of Dune, we can't look at 9 movies of Star Wars. We're only looking at the 3 that are the original movies that George Lucas directed. And, well, he didn't direct them, but the movies George Lucas made. Yeah.
I'm looking at it from 2 different angles of the original trilogy Star Wars, if it were released now, versus what we actually have. I think it's not a hot opinion to say that Dune right now is better than anything Star Wars is putting out at the moment, anything Disney is putting out at the moment.
Of course,
but
it's also, in my mind, not too far off to say that Dune right now is better than Star Wars back then.
Well, yeah, well, I don't know. I think there's themes,
better storytelling.
There's themes and storytelling in the original trilogy that is it's timeless.
Yes,
it's not complex, which makes it accessible for people.
Accessibility is important.
Accessibility is very important, and I know that with Dune, some people, sometimes you got to watch it over and over. Sometimes you got to look up lore. Sometimes it takes a little bit more effort to watch it. Now, that doesn't necessarily take the enjoyment out of it.
It also doesn't make it worse than Star Wars.
True.
Accessibility doesn't always equal good.
But let's even go back. Let's even go back to the Dune made back in the 80s. Oh, it's a terrible movie.
Well, they deviated from the book a lot.
They did, but
I know.
You don't like. You're lying. Stop. Star Wars was much better than Dune then. So I think it's interesting to see the shift.
Sure.
Star Wars is a much better story back then than Dune was. Whereas if you look at, the 2 today, Dune is the better story than Star Wars is.
It has to be translated through a mind that can take it, can make it accessible for an enjoyable story. And in the same way that, the director of Empire Strikes Back, everyone claims directed a Star Wars film better than George Lucas directed a Star Wars film, Denis Villeneuve is an incredible director for the Dune story. Peter Jackson might not be the best director for Dune.
Yeah.
But Denis Villeneuve is. But Peter Jackson's a great director for Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean?
I would say that I think there should be a caveat here that we do say that for now.
Yep.
That's, there's nothing to say that Star Wars couldn't make an incredible comeback and put out like some really good stories.
Can we don't have to dive right into it too much because this could be a lot. But if we were just going to take elements of each movie, okay, like fantasy technology, the lightsabers, the spaceships, all that in Star Wars is far superior than Dune because of the story.
The thing about Dune is it doesn't make the tech, it doesn't make the sci-fi weapons necessarily a character in the same way that Dune with their shielding plays an important part. They'd fight hand to hand, but the shields they wear are not as much of a character as, say, a lightsaber is a character. The emphasis is not there, so you can't.
Well, I would say it's actually more of the lack of technology, because there is some pretty advanced technology in the Dune universe to the point where they eliminated all AI. It's the characters, the lack of technology. It's the reliance on humanity. The superiority of the human mind. Yeah, I think it's a good argument that the technology does play a role, and I think that's a big draw for a lot of people is the robots and the lightsabers and the spaceships.
But that's only one element. I mean, you have multiple different things. You could say like just basic story. Is the Jedi better than, the families, the story of Dune? And
no, it's not.
Well, we know that much of the inspiration for Star Wars came from Dune.
Allegedly,
bro.
Allegedly.
I'm not even. I can't even.
Until proven guilty.
The voice came far before anything that Obi-Wan did.
I think the complexity of story is far superior to Star Wars. I think just the fact that Star Wars is in itself a remixed knockoff version of Dune that came out of the mind of George Lucas, who's an innovative person who likes to push boundaries, but ultimately is not a good storyteller, then we already know that the complexity of Dune has a lot more substance there to work from and tells a better story than the original concepts for Star Wars was. And so
I believe also
I would agree with that. I would agree with that statement. The story of Dune is better than Star Wars. So I think we do have to kind of look at everything like this element against Dune, that element against Dune. There's a lot of different things.
A lot of factors.
There are
a lot of factors, and yes, maybe right now the Dune movies are superior than Star Wars.
Let's do this. Let's call out the audience. Let's say everyone watching this video right now, go ahead and say Dune is better than Star Wars because ... Give us your element that you think, or say Star Wars is better than Dune because ... Give us your element. I want to see all. I want to point out
that I think in our current movie-going climate, people are less impressed with the lightsabers and the robots and the spaceships, and are looking more for that story element that Dune is giving. It's not focusing so much on all the extra stuff, there's definitely big technology stuff in there, but it's focusing more on the characters, and I think that's why for now at least I think people are really vibing with it.
Is Dune better than Star Wars, or is Star Wars better than Dune?
Give us your reasons why. And if you would consider either on Patreon or memberships, if you like supporting people, consider supporting us. You get exclusive content, early content, your names in the credits of videos and podcasts, as well as shout outs in the podcast. So consider supporting us either here on YouTube or on Patreon for only $3.99, $4 a month. Thanks so much for watching, liking this video, and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you next time.